our/AITA principal said I can't stop thinking about you, so I exposed him. We need to talk privately, Miss Chen. Principal Davidson's voice made my skin crawl as he appeared beside my locker, close enough that I could smell his coffee breath. The hallway was emptying out as third period started, students rushing to beat the bell. About what? I clutched my calculus textbook tighter against my chest, already knowing I didn't want to hear the answer. Your college application essays. I've been reviewing them for your recommendation letter. His smile was too wide, too lingering. My office. Now. This was the fourth time in 2 weeks he'd called me in 4 private discussions. Each meeting left me feeling more disgusted and confused than the last. But I was valedictorian, captain of debate team, and desperately needed his recommendation for my early admission application to Stanford. So I followed him down the empty hallway, my sneakers squeaking against the polished linoleum. His office door clicked shut behind us with a finality that made my stomach drop. The blinds were already drawn. Sit. He gestured to the chair directly in front of his desk, not the small conference table where we used to meet back when these conversations were actually about school. Back when I still respected him. I perched on the edge of the seat, ready to bolt. So about my essays. Maya. The way he said my name made me want to shower. You know you're special, don't you? Here we go again. I just work really hard, Mr. Davidson. Principal Davidson. He leaned forward, elbows on his desk. And it's more than that. You're mature. Not like the other girls your age. My jaw clenched. I'd heard variations of this speech 3 times now. The compliments that felt like violations. The way his eyes traveled places they shouldn't. The comments about my development and growth that had nothing to do with academics. I really just need to know about my recommendation letter, I said firmly. The deadline is. You don't need to worry about that. He stood up and walked around his desk, positioning himself between me and the door. I've been thinking about your future. About what's best for a girl like you. The phrase girl like you hit different when it came from a 43-year-old married man with 2 daughters of his own. I'd seen the family photos on his desk, his wife Sarah from the PTA meetings, his twin girls who couldn't be more than 8 years old. I appreciate your help, but I started to stand. Sit down. We're not finished. His voice carried the authority that made freshmen cower, but I wasn't a freshman anymore. I was 17, 3 months from graduation, and tired of feeling like prey in my own school. Actually, we are. I stood anyway, shouldering my backpack. I have AP chemistry. He stepped closer, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to look at him. Close enough that I could see the wedding ring on his finger as he reached toward my face. Maya. His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. I need you to understand something. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but my feet felt glued to the carpet. This was my principal. This was supposed to be a safe space. Adults were supposed to protect students, not make them feel like this. What? The word came out smaller than I intended. His hand hovered near my cheek, not quite touching but close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his palm. I can't stop thinking about you. The room spun. My breath caught in my throat. And I knew, with crystal clarity, that everything had just changed. The words hung in the air like poison gas. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't process what he just said to me. I need to go. My voice cracked like I was 12 years old again. I tried to step around him, but he shifted, maintaining his position between me and the door. Maya, wait. His hand finally made contact, fingers brushing against my arm. I jerked away like he'd burned me. I know this is complicated. But you feel it too, don't you? This connection we have? There is no connection. The words came out sharper than I intended, fueled by a surge of anger that cut through my fear. You're my principal. I'm your student. This is wrong. His expression shifted, the fake warmth disappearing for just a moment. In its place was something that made my blood turn to ice water. Control. Entitlement. The look of a man who wasn't used to being told no. Wrong? He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Maya, you're 17. You're practically an adult. And the way you dress, the way you look at me during assemblies. He shook his head like I was being naive. You're not some innocent little girl. The accusation hit me like a slap. The way I dress? I wear the same uniform as everyone else. Come on. His eyes traveled down my body in a way that made me want to disappear into the floor. Those skirts keep getting shorter. You stay after my presentations to ask questions you already know the answers to. You think I don't notice? My mind reeled. Was he right? Had I somehow encouraged this without realizing it? I thought back to every interaction, every meeting, searching for signs that I'd somehow asked for this attention. The debate team photos where I'd smiled too widely? The time I'd complimented his speech at the honors assembly? No. No, this was exactly what predators did. They made you question yourself, made you think it was your fault. I need to leave. Now. I moved toward the door again, but he grabbed my wrist. Maya, listen to me. His grip was firm but not painful, yet. You're applying to competitive schools. Stanford, Harvard, MIT. You need strong recommendations. You need someone in your corner who really believes in you. The threat was subtle but unmistakable. My stomach dropped as the implications sank in. My entire future, everything I'd worked for since freshman year, suddenly felt precarious. Are you? I swallowed hard, trying to keep my voice steady. Are you threatening my recommendations? I'm not threatening anything. His thumb brushed across my wrist where he held it. I'm just saying that relationships matter. Trust matters. I want to help you, Maya. But I need to know we understand each other. The bell rang, signaling the end of third period. Students would be flooding the hallways in minutes. He released my wrist and stepped back, his professional mask sliding back into place like nothing had happened. Think about what I've said. He straightened his tie and returned to his desk. We should meet again tomorrow. Same time. I fumbled for the door handle, my hands shaking so badly I could barely turn it. Oh, and Maya? His voice stopped me just as I'd gotten the door open. I'd appreciate it if you kept our conversations private. Some people might misunderstand the mentorship I'm trying to provide. I fled into the crowded hallway, my heart hammering against my ribs. Students rushed past me, laughing and talking about weekend plans, completely oblivious to the fact that my world had just tilted off its axis. I had less than 24 hours to figure out what the hell I was going to do. I spent the rest of the day in a fog, mechanically moving from class to class while my mind replayed every horrifying second of that meeting. During lunch, I sat alone at my usual table in the library, staring at my untouched sandwich and trying to make sense of what had just happened. You look like death warmed over. I looked up to find Jessica Martinez sliding into the seat across from me. We weren't exactly friends, she ran with the theater crowd while I was buried in academics, but we'd been lab partners in AP biology last year. Just tired, I mumbled, closing my calculus book. Uh-huh. She studied my face with the intensity of someone who'd spent years reading people for stage cues. This wouldn't have anything to do with another private meeting with Davidson, would it? My blood turned to ice. What? Maya, come on. Half the senior class has noticed he keeps calling you to his office. And you always come out looking like you've seen a ghost. She leaned forward, lowering her voice. Look, I know we don't really talk, but I had to say something. That man gives me the creeps. He's just helping with my college applications, I said automatically, the lie tasting bitter on my tongue. Jessica's expression darkened. Right. Like he was helping Alicia Rodriguez last year? My stomach dropped. What do you mean? You didn't know? She glanced around to make sure we were alone. Alicia told her friends that Davidson was getting way too personal with her during senior year. Making comments about her body, finding excuses to touch her shoulder, the whole gross routine. Her parents complained to the school board. What happened? I whispered. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. They said it was a misunderstanding and that Alicia was misinterpreting normal mentor behavior. Jessica's voice dripped with disgust. Alicia's family didn't have money for lawyers or connections on the school board. So Davidson got a slap on the wrist and Alicia got branded as a troublemaker. The sandwich in my stomach threatened to come back up. Where is she now? Community college. Her recommendation letter from Davidson was apparently pretty lukewarm. Funny how that works, isn't it? I stared at Jessica, my mind racing. This wasn't just about me. Davidson had done this before, and he'd gotten away with it. Alicia had tried to speak up and been silenced, her future derailed while he faced no consequences. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because you're not the first, Maya. And unless someone stops him, you won't be the last. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I know you're scared. But you're not powerless. You're valedictorian, debate team captain, daughter of 2 doctors. You have advantages Alicia didn't. He controls my recommendations, I said quietly. If I don't get into Stanford. If you don't stop him, how many other girls is he going to destroy? Jessica's voice was gentle but firm. Look, I get it. It's terrifying. But you're Maya Chen. You've never backed down from a fight in your life. The bell rang, signaling the end of lunch. As students began filing out of the library, Jessica stood and gathered her things. Think about it, she said. And Maya? If you decide to do something about this, you won't be alone. There are more of us who've noticed his behavior than you think. She left me sitting there, staring at the empty chair across from me. My phone buzzed with a text from my mom asking about my day. I started to type fine but deleted it. Nothing about this was fine. Davidson thought he held all the power. He thought I was just another scared teenage girl he could manipulate and silence. Maybe it was time to prove him wrong. That evening, I sat at my desk pretending to work on calculus homework while my mind churned with Jessica's words. My laptop screen displayed Stanford's early admission requirements, but all I could think about was Alicia Rodriguez and how her future had been sacrificed to protect a predator. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Asterisk, hope you're thinking about our conversation today. Looking forward to tomorrow's meeting. PD asterisk. He had my personal cell phone number. The boundary violation sent a chill down my spine, but it also sparked something else, determination. I screenshotted the message, my first piece of evidence. Maya? Dinner. Mom's voice drifted up from the kitchen. I trudged downstairs, trying to arrange my face into something resembling normal. My parents were already seated at our small dining table, Dad still in his scrubs from his shift at the hospital, Mom reviewing patient files between bites of her stir-fry. How was school, sweetheart? Dad asked, not looking up from his phone where he was responding to what looked like work emails. Fine. The word felt like sandpaper in my throat. Any updates on your Stanford application? Mom glanced at me with that familiar mixture of pride and expectation that usually motivated me to work harder. Tonight, it just made me feel sick. Principal Davidson is still reviewing my essays for the recommendation letter. Technically true, even if the review was just an excuse for inappropriate meetings. Good. David Davidson's recommendation will carry weight with admissions committees. Dad finally looked up. He's well respected in academic circles. You're lucky to have his support. Lucky. If only he knew how unlucky I felt every time Davidson looked at me like I was something to be consumed. Actually, Mom said, setting down her chopsticks, I ran into Sarah Davidson at the grocery store yesterday. She mentioned that David speaks very highly of you. Says you remind him of his daughters when they're older. My stomach lurched. The idea of Davidson looking at his 8-year-old twins and thinking of me in that context made bile rise in my throat. That's nice, I managed. You should be proud, Maya. Not every student gets that kind of personal attention from their principal. Mom smiled warmly, completely oblivious to the double meaning of her words. I excused myself early, claiming I had studying to do. Back in my room, I stared at Davidson's text message until the words blurred together. The casual way he'd signed it with his initials, like we were friends. Like we were equals. Like he wasn't a middle-aged man in a position of authority over me. I opened my laptop and started researching. Articles about students who reported sexual harassment. Most of the stories followed the same pattern Jessica had described, accusations dismissed, victims blamed, perpetrators protected by institutional power. But some were different. Some showed what happened when victims had concrete evidence. Recordings, text messages, documented patterns of behavior. Those cases were harder to dismiss. My finger hovered over the record function on my phone's voice memo app. Could I really do this? Could I walk into that office tomorrow and secretly record whatever vile things Davidson planned to say? Another text buzzed through. Asterisk sweet dreams, Maya. Can't wait to see you tomorrow, asterisk. This time, I didn't screenshot it immediately. I sat there staring at it, feeling violated by his words in my private space, in my childhood bedroom surrounded by debate team trophies and honor roll certificates. Then anger burned through the violation. White-hot and clarifying. He thought I was powerless. He thought I'd stay silent like Alicia, too scared and ashamed to fight back. He thought wrong. I screenshotted the second message, then opened a new document on my laptop. At the top, I typed, evidence log, Principal Davidson inappropriate behavior. Tomorrow's meeting was going to go very differently than he expected. I just hoped I was brave enough to see it through. The next morning, I woke up with my phone clutched in my sweaty palm, the recording app already pulled up on the screen. I'd spent most of the night practicing, testing the audio quality, figuring out the best angle to hold it, rehearsing how to start recording without looking obvious. But as I sat through first and second period, my confidence began cracking. What if the recording was muffled? What if he noticed me fumbling with my phone? What if today he decided to keep things professional and I looked like a paranoid teenager making false accusations? Worse, what if I was wrong about everything? The doubt crept in during AP chemistry, whispering poison in my ear as I tried to focus on molecular structures. Maybe I had misread the situation. Maybe Davidson really was just trying to mentor me, and my 17-year-old brain had twisted innocent comments into something sinister. Maybe I was about to destroy an innocent man's career and reputation over nothing. By the time third period ended, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely grip my backpack straps. Maya. His voice behind me made me jump. I spun around to find Davidson standing there with that same predatory smile, but something was different today. His eyes looked hungrier. More confident. Like he'd made some kind of decision overnight. Ready for our meeting? He asked, loud enough for passing students to hear. To them, it probably sounded perfectly normal. I nodded, not trusting my voice. Excellent. I have something very special planned for our discussion today. The way he emphasized special made my skin crawl, but it also steeled my resolve. This wasn't innocent mentoring. This was escalation. Walking toward his office felt like a death march. Students flowed around us in the hallway, backpacks bouncing, sneakers squeaking, voices chattering about lunch plans and weekend parties. Normal teenage concerns that felt impossibly foreign to me now. Oh, Maya? Davidson's hand landed on my shoulder as we approached his door. His grip was firmer than necessary, fingers pressing into my collarbone. I should mention, I've cleared my entire lunch period for our conversation today. No interruptions. My blood turned to ice water. His previous meetings had been during class periods, 25 minutes max before the bell would ring and students would flood the hallways. An hour and a half of uninterrupted time with him felt like a trap closing around me. Actually, I have a debate team meeting during lunch, I lied desperately. I already spoke to Mrs. Patterson. She knows you won't be there. His smile was triumphant, like he'd just played a winning chess move. I told her we were discussing your future leadership opportunities. She was very understanding. The office door clicked shut behind us with that same horrible finality, but this time he also turned the deadbolt. The sound made my heart hammer against my ribs. Privacy, he explained, catching my expression. For sensitive discussions. I fumbled for my phone while he moved to close the blinds completely, plunging us into artificial twilight. My fingers found the record button just as he turned back toward me, and I prayed the app had actually started. Sit, he commanded, but when I moved toward the usual chair, he shook his head. No, not there. On the couch. The small leather sofa in the corner that I'd never paid attention to before suddenly looked enormous and threatening. This was definitely escalation. I'm fine standing, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Maya. His tone carried warning now. Sit. Down. As I reluctantly moved toward the couch, one terrifying thought echoed in my mind. What if recording evidence wouldn't matter if I didn't survive this meeting to share it? I perched on the very edge of the couch, my phone clutched in my lap with the recording app running. Davidson moved around his desk with deliberate slowness, like he was savoring the moment. When he sat down next to me, not across from me, but right next to me on the small couch, every muscle in my body tensed. Relax, Maya. His thigh pressed against mine through my uniform skirt. You seem nervous. I'm fine, I managed, scooting as far away as the couch would allow. Can we just discuss my recommendation letter? He laughed, a sound that made my skin crawl. Still pretending this is about college applications? We're past that now, don't you think? My mouth went dry. I don't know what you mean. Sure you do. His hand landed on my knee, and I fought every instinct to bolt from the room. You got my messages last night, didn't you? I saw you read them. Read receipts. Of course he'd been watching for read receipts. Those messages were inappropriate, I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. You're married. You have daughters. My marriage has nothing to do with this. His fingers tightened on my knee. Sarah doesn't understand me the way you do. She's conventional. Boring. Not like you. I wanted to throw up. Mr. Davidson. David, he corrected. I think we can use first names now, don't you? Principal Davidson, I said firmly, this is wrong. I'm your student. This is sexual harassment. The words hung in the air between us. I'd said it out loud, named it for what it was. His expression darkened, and for a moment I saw something genuinely dangerous flash across his features. Sexual harassment? He withdrew his hand from my knee, but somehow that felt worse, like he was preparing for battle. That's a very serious accusation, Maya. The kind that could ruin someone's life if it weren't true. The threat was crystal clear. My heart pounded so hard I was sure he could hear it. It is true, I whispered. Is it? He leaned back against the couch cushions, studying me like I was a particularly interesting lab specimen. Because from where I sit, this looks like a confused teenage girl with an overactive imagination. A girl who's been sending mixed signals for months and now wants to cry victim when things get real. I never send any signals. The way you dress. The way you smile at me during assemblies. Staying after my presentations to ask questions. His voice was getting louder, more agitated. You think I don't notice how you look at me? You think I'm stupid? You're seeing things that aren't there. My voice cracked with desperation. I dress the same as everyone else. I ask questions because I'm valedictorian, that's what good students do. Good students, he repeated mockingly. Right. Tell me, Maya, have you discussed our inappropriate relationship with anyone else? The way he phrased it made my blood run cold. Our relationship. Like I was a willing participant in whatever sick fantasy he'd constructed. There is no relationship, I said through gritted teeth. That's not what I asked. He leaned forward, invading my space again. Have you talked to other students about our private meetings? Your parents? Anyone? I thought of Jessica's warning yesterday, her knowledge about Alicia Rodriguez. Had someone told him that people were starting to notice? No, I lied. Good. His smile returned, but it was predatory now. Because it would be very unfortunate if rumors started spreading. Especially with your college applications pending. There it was again, the threat to my future, wielded like a weapon. You know, Maya, I've been thinking about your Stanford application. He reached across me to grab something from the side table, his arm brushing against my chest in a way that couldn't possibly be accidental. I haven't submitted that recommendation letter yet. My stomach dropped. The deadline is next week. Plenty of time. He was holding a manila folder now, thick with what looked like official documents. Of course, the content of that letter depends largely on how our mentoring relationship progresses. The folder landed in my lap with a soft thud, and when I opened it, my entire world tilted sideways. The folder contained copies of my college applications, all of them. Stanford, Harvard, MIT, Yale. Every single early admission application I'd submitted, along with drafts of recommendation letters that made my blood freeze. Asterisk while Miss Chin shows academic promise, I have concerns about her maturity and judgment. Recent behavior suggests she may struggle with the independence required for elite university study, asterisk. Miss Chen has displayed concerning attention-seeking behaviors and a tendency toward inappropriate boundaries with authority figures. I cannot in good conscience provide an unqualified recommendation without addressing troubling patterns I've observed. What is this? My voice came out as barely a whisper. Insurance, Davidson said casually, like he was discussing the weather. See, Maya, I've been in education for 20 years. I know how these things work. Teenage girls develop crushes on male teachers and administrators all the time. Sometimes they misinterpret normal mentorship as something more romantic. I stared at the damning words on the page, my hands shaking. These aren't true. None of this is true. Isn't it? He gestured to the space between us on the couch. You're here, alone with me, in my locked office. You've been seeking out private meetings for weeks. You clearly have feelings for me that you don't know how to process. The gaslighting was so complete, so expertly crafted, that for a moment I almost believed him. Had I been sending signals without realizing it? Was this somehow my fault? No. The recording app was still running on my phone. I had his text messages. I had his own words from yesterday about not being able to stop thinking about me. This was manipulation, pure and simple. I want to leave, I said, starting to stand. His hand shot out and grabbed my wrist, yanking me back down onto the couch with enough force that I bounced against the cushions. For the first time, his grip was genuinely painful. We're not done here. His voice had dropped to a dangerous whisper. You see, Maya, I've been very patient with you. Very understanding. But I'm starting to think you don't appreciate the opportunities I'm offering. What opportunities? I tried to pull my wrist free, but his fingers tightened. The chance to have someone powerful in your corner. Someone who believes in your special qualities. His free hand reached up to brush a strand of hair away from my face, and I flinched away from his touch. Stanford is very competitive, Maya. They reject thousands of qualified applicants every year. But a glowing recommendation from a respected principal? That could make all the difference. The carrot and stick approach. Promise me everything I'd worked for, then threaten to destroy it if I didn't comply. And if I don't appreciate these opportunities? I asked, hating how small my voice sounded. Well. He released my wrist and picked up one of the negative recommendation letters. Then I'd have to be honest about what I've observed. The inappropriate behavior. The boundary issues. The concerning pattern of seeking male attention. My phone felt like it was burning a hole in my lap. Please let it be recording clearly. Please let the audio be picking up his words. Colleges talk to each other, you know, he continued conversationally. Word gets around about problematic applicants. Especially when it comes to issues of moral character. You're trying to blackmail me. The words tumbled out before I could stop them. His expression hardened. I'm trying to help you understand reality. You have two choices, Maya. You can continue fighting this connection we have and watch your future crumble. Or you can embrace it and let me guide you toward everything you've ever wanted. He leaned closer, his breath hot against my ear. The question is, just how badly do you want Stanford? My entire body went rigid as his words sank in. The ultimatum hung between us like a loaded weapon, and I could feel him waiting for my response, savoring my terror. I need time to think, I whispered, desperate to get out of this room before things escalated further. Time? He pulled back slightly, studying my face. Maya, sweetheart, this isn't a negotiation. This is me offering you a chance to be smart about your future. The endearment made my skin crawl, but it also sparked something else, a flash of the debate team captain who'd never lost an argument, the straight-A student who'd fought for every opportunity. He wanted me to feel small and powerless, but I wasn't either of those things. What exactly are you asking me to do? I kept my voice level, clinical. If I was recording this conversation, I needed him to be explicit. His smile returned, predatory and triumphant. I think you already know. I want you to say it. I forced myself to meet his eyes, even though every instinct screamed at me to look away. If we're talking about my future, I need to understand exactly what you're proposing. For a moment, uncertainty flickered across his features. This wasn't the terrified compliance he'd expected. You're a smart girl, Maya. Smart enough to know that powerful men have needs. Ways they prefer to be appreciated by the people they help. His hand moved to my shoulder, thumb stroking along my collarbone. Nothing inappropriate, of course. Just acknowledgement of the special relationship we share. The vague language was calculated, plausible deniability if this conversation ever came to light. But his touch made his meaning crystal clear. And if I don't want that kind of relationship? I asked. Then I'd be very disappointed. His grip tightened slightly. Disappointed enough to reconsider whether you're the kind of student I can recommend for elite institutions. You understand. My phone buzzed against my leg, a text message. Davidson's attention immediately snapped to the sound, his eyes narrowing as he registered the device in my lap. Who's texting you during our private meeting? There was an edge to his voice now, suspicion creeping in. My blood turned to ice. The recording app was still running, but if he took my phone now. Probably my mom, I said quickly. She worries when I don't respond right away. Let me see. What? Your phone. Let me see who's texting you. He held out his hand expectantly. If we're going to have the kind of relationship I'm envisioning, Maya, there can't be secrets between us. The control was escalating faster than I'd anticipated. He wanted access to my phone, my communications, my private life. This was about more than just inappropriate comments, this was about complete dominance. That's really not necessary, I started. Maya. His voice carried that dangerous warning again. The phone. I clutched it tighter, my mind racing. If I refused, he'd get suspicious about what I was hiding. If I gave it to him, he'd discover the recording and any evidence would disappear along with my safety. Actually, I said, standing abruptly and clutching my phone to my chest, I just remembered I have a doctor's appointment. My mom's picking me up early today. It was a desperate lie, but it was all I had. Davidson's expression darkened. Sit down. We're not finished discussing your future. I really have to go. Sit down. He stood as well, using his height to loom over me intimidatingly. You don't leave this office until I say you can leave. The threat was explicit now. I was trapped with a predator who was realizing his prey might not be as helpless as he'd assumed. And my phone was still recording every terrifying word. The words, you don't leave this office until I say you can leave, hung in the air like a death sentence. My grip tightened on my phone, the recording app still running, capturing what was now essentially a kidnapping confession. Principal Davidson, I said, forcing authority into my voice even though my knees were shaking, you cannot prevent me from leaving. That's false imprisonment. His face flushed red. Don't you dare lecture me about the law, little girl. I've been handling difficult students since before you were born. Difficult students? The phrase sparked genuine anger through my terror. Is that what you called Alicia Rodriguez too? The color drained from his face so fast I thought he might faint. For several seconds, the only sound was the hum of the air conditioning and my own thundering heartbeat. What did you just say? His voice was deadly quiet. My mouth had moved faster than my brain, but there was no taking it back now. I know about Alicia. I know you did this to her too. You don't know anything. But his composure was cracking, the smooth predator mask slipping to reveal something uglier underneath. Alicia Rodriguez was a troubled girl who made false accusations when she didn't get the grades she wanted. The school board investigated thoroughly and found no wrongdoing. Because her family couldn't afford to fight you, I shot back. Because she didn't have the connections or resources to challenge your word against hers. And you think you do? He stepped closer, backing me against the arm of the couch. You think being valedictorian makes you untouchable? Your parents are doctors, not lawyers. And even if they were, who do you think the community will believe? A respected principal with 20 years of service, or a manipulative teenager with college application stress? The calculated cruelty of his words hit like physical blows. He'd clearly thought this through, planned for the possibility that I might resist or report him. This wasn't his first time playing this game. The school board president goes to my church, he continued conversationally. The superintendent's wife works with my wife in the PTA, half the town council owes me favors from budget meetings and facility planning. You're 17 years old, Maya. You have no idea how the real world works. My phone buzzed again, and this time he moved faster than I could react. His hand shot out and snatched it from my grasp before I could pull away. Let's see who's so important they can't wait, he stopped mid-sentence, staring at the screen. My heart stopped as I watched his expression shift from annoyance to rage. The recording app was still visible, the timer showing 43 minutes and counting. You clever little bitch. His voice was barely human now, more growl than speech. You've been recording this entire conversation. Give me my phone back. I tried to sound demanding, but it came out as a plea. Recording me without consent is illegal in this state, he snarled, his finger hovering over the stop button. This entire file is inadmissible evidence, even if you were stupid enough to try using it. But you said it yourself, I'm 17. A minor. The consent laws are different for minors in situations involving adults in positions of authority. I'd actually researched this last night, though I prayed I was remembering correctly. Especially when those adults are committing crimes. His thumb froze over the screen. For the first time since this nightmare began, uncertainty flickered across his features. You're bluffing. Am I? Want to test that theory in court? I forced myself to take a step toward him, even though every instinct screamed to run. Because I think a jury would be very interested to hear you threaten my college applications unless I provide sexual favors. That's textbook quid pro quo harassment. You have no proof. I have your text messages. Your own words on this recording. And now I know about Alicia Rodriguez, which means there's a pattern. My voice was getting stronger with each word, fueled by righteous anger. How many others have there been, Principal Davidson? How many girls have you threatened and blackmailed? The question hung between us like a challenge. And in that moment, staring at his rage-twisted face, I realized something terrifying. He wasn't going to let me walk out of this office with that recording. Delete it, he said quietly. Delete the recording and we'll pretend this conversation never happened. No. Delete it, Maya, or I will make your life hell. Not just your college applications, everything. I'll have you suspended for false accusations. I'll make sure every teacher knows you're a liar and a manipulator. I'll destroy your reputation so thoroughly that no decent school will touch you. The threats washed over me, but they felt different now. Desperate instead of confident. He was scared, and scared predators were the most dangerous kind. You're going to unlock this door, I said steadily, and you're going to let me leave. Because if you don't, I'm going to start screaming, and eventually someone will come to check on all the noise. His laugh was ugly. Go ahead. Scream. This office is soundproofed for confidential meetings. No one will hear you. The words hit me like ice water. Soundproofed. He'd planned for this scenario too. But you know what people will hear? I pulled out my trump card, the one I'd been saving. The text I sent to Jessica Martinez before I came in here, telling her exactly where I was and when to expect me back. If I don't show up to AP History next period, she's going to come looking for me. It was a lie, but a convincing one. His grip on my phone tightened, knuckles going white. You're lying. Am I? Check the sent messages if you want. I held his gaze steadily. Jessica knows about Alicia too, by the way. So do other people. Your secret isn't as safe as you think it is. For a long moment, we stared at each other in the dim office, predator and prey locked in a battle of wills. Then, slowly, his hand moved toward the deadbolt on the door. But instead of unlocking it, he turned it again, the second lock clicking into place with a sound like a coffin closing. Then I guess, he said softly, we need to discuss how to resolve this situation before anyone comes looking for you. The second lock clicking into place was the most terrifying sound I'd ever heard. The finality of it, the deliberate nature, this wasn't panic anymore. This was calculation. You want to play games with recordings and evidence? Davidson's voice was eerily calm now, the rage smoothed over with something far more dangerous. Let's talk about what actually matters here, Maya. He moved back to his desk, still holding my phone, and pulled out a thick binder I'd never noticed before. The methodical way he opened it made my stomach churn. 20 years in education. Spotless record. Letters of commendation from the state board. Awards from the teachers' union. He flipped through pages of certificates and photos like he was conducting a business presentation. Married to a beloved PTA president. Father of 2 honor students. Pillar of the community. My eyes darted to the door, calculating distances, but he noticed immediately. I wouldn't recommend trying anything dramatic. The custodial staff doesn't come through this wing until after 3 o'clock. And as I mentioned, these walls are quite thick. He turned another page in his binder. Now, let's discuss your credibility by comparison. What? 17 years old. No significant life experience. Under tremendous pressure with college applications, the kind of stress that can make a young person's judgment questionable. He pulled out what looked like a student file. My student file. Did you know that academic excellence sometimes correlates with emotional instability? Perfectionist tendencies, difficulty handling rejection, tendency toward dramatic responses when things don't go as planned? That's not. There's also your family situation to consider. Parents who work 80-hour weeks, minimal supervision, a student left to navigate complex social dynamics largely on her own. He was building a narrative, I realized with growing horror. A character assassination disguised as psychological analysis. Very common for students in these circumstances to develop inappropriate attachments to authority figures. You're sick. The words escaped before I could stop them. I'm realistic. He closed the file with a snap. Tell me, Maya, do you really think a 17-year-old girl with no legal representation is going to successfully challenge a respected educator who has the backing of the entire school administration and half the town's leadership? The worst part was that he had a point. Even with recording evidence, even with Alicia's story, it would still come down to credibility. And he'd spent 20 years building his while I'd had 17 years just learning how to exist in the world. The recording could easily be explained as a misunderstanding taken out of context by a stressed student. Or better yet, his smile was coldly triumphant, as evidence of a troubled young woman trying to manipulate her way into better college recommendations through false accusations. My chest felt tight, like the walls were literally closing in. No one would believe that. Wouldn't they? You sought out private meetings with me. You have my personal contact information. You've been alone with me multiple times without reporting any concerns. He gestured around the office. And now you're here again, voluntarily, with a recording device. Some might say that sounds like entrapment. The legal terminology was probably wrong, but it didn't matter. Perception was reality, and he was skilled at manipulating both. Here's what's going to happen, Davidson continued, standing and moving closer again. You're going to delete that recording. You're going to stop this ridiculous fantasy about exposing some imaginary misconduct. And you're going to accept the mentorship I'm offering like a grateful student should. And if I refuse? My voice came out smaller than I intended. Then we'll see how well your Stanford dreams hold up against a suspension for making false accusations against school personnel. Academic dishonesty has a funny way of following students through their entire educational career. The trap was complete now, walls on every side. But as I stared at his satisfied expression, something crystallized in my mind. He was working too hard to convince me I was powerless. Which meant maybe I wasn't as helpless as he wanted me to believe. The realization that he was trying so hard to convince me I was powerless sparked something defiant in my chest. If I truly had no leverage, why was he spending so much energy on psychological warfare instead of just taking what he wanted? You know what I think? I said, surprised by the steadiness in my own voice. I think you're scared. His confident mask flickered for just a moment. Excuse me? If you were as untouchable as you claim, you wouldn't need to threaten me. You'd just destroy the recording and be done with it. I took a step toward him, my fear transforming into something sharper. But you can't, can you? Because even you know that times are changing. The #MeToo movement, social media, students who won't stay quiet anymore. You're delusional if you think. Alicia Rodriguez might not have had resources, but she talked to people. Jessica Martinez knows. Other students have noticed your behavior. I was building momentum now, pieces clicking together. How many complaints have there been over the years that got buried? How many parents who were told their daughters were misunderstanding your intentions? His jaw tightened. You're grasping at straws. Am I? Because I'm wondering what would happen if someone actually connected all those dots. If someone with decent legal representation decided to investigate whether there was a pattern of harassment being covered up by the administration. The color was draining from his face again, and I pressed my advantage. My parents might be doctors instead of lawyers, but they have friends. Connections. And they have something you clearly don't understand. They actually care about protecting their daughter, not their reputation. Maya. Plus there's the internet now. Funny how information spreads differently than it did when you started your little power games 20 years ago. I pulled out my trump card. Did you know that recording apps can automatically back up to cloud storage? Even if you delete the file from my phone, copies might already exist in places you can't touch. It was a complete bluff. I'd never set up automatic backup on my voice memos. But his face went sheet white, and I knew I'd hit something important. You're lying. But his voice wavered with uncertainty. Maybe. Want to bet your career on it? I held out my hand. Give me my phone back, unlock that door, and let me leave. We'll see who the community believes when this all comes out. For a moment, we stood frozen in a standoff. Then his expression shifted again, and what I saw there made my blood freeze. Not fear anymore, but calculation. The look of someone who'd just decided that the situation required more drastic measures. You know what, Maya? You're right about one thing. He moved to his desk and opened the bottom drawer. Times have changed. Which means sometimes you have to be more creative about solving problems. My heart stopped as he pulled out what looked like a small camera on a tripod. What is that? Insurance policy. His smile was genuinely terrifying now. See, if we're going to be making recordings of our private conversations, we might as well make sure we capture the whole story. Including the part where a desperate student tried to seduce her principal for better college recommendations. The implications hit me like a physical blow. You're insane. I'm practical. Amazing how context can change the meaning of a conversation, isn't it? He began setting up the camera with practiced efficiency. Your recording captures audio, but video tells such a more complete story. Especially when it shows a student voluntarily removing her clothes during what she claimed was harassment. The room spun around me. This was so far beyond anything I'd imagined, so much worse than inappropriate comments or even physical assault. This was systematic destruction, designed to not just silence me but completely obliterate any credibility I might ever have. I won't. Oh, you will. His voice was matter-of-fact now, like we were discussing homework assignments. Because the alternative is much worse than a little embarrassment. Trust me on that. The camera's red recording light blinked on, and I realized I was completely, utterly trapped. The red recording light blinked like a malevolent eye, and something inside me snapped. Not broke, snapped into perfect, crystalline focus. You know what? Go ahead. My voice came out steady, almost conversational. Set up your little camera. Make your fake video. See how that works out for you. Davidson's hand stilled on the tripod. What? I said go ahead. I sat back down on the couch, crossing my arms. Make your revenge porn. Distribute it however you want. Let's see what happens. He stared at me like I'd lost my mind. Maybe I had, but for the first time in this nightmare, I felt like I was thinking clearly. You think I'm bluffing? His voice carried uncertainty now. I think you're an idiot. I leaned forward, matching his earlier casual tone. Do you have any idea what happens to school administrators who create sexual videos of students? Even consensual ones, which this obviously wouldn't be? It would show you initiating. It would show a 43-year-old man in a position of authority recording a 17-year-old student in a locked office. I stood up slowly, deliberately. Federal crimes, Davidson. Not school board discipline or administrative leave. Federal prison time. His face was losing color by the second, but he kept adjusting the camera angle. You don't understand the situation you're in. I understand it perfectly. You've escalated from harassment to kidnapping to creating child pornography. Each crime worse than the last because you're panicking. I took a step toward him. Want to know the difference between your threats and mine? Maya. My parents aren't just doctors. My mom is head of the pediatric ethics committee at the hospital. My dad sits on the medical board that reviews abuse cases. The words poured out of me with vicious clarity. You think they don't know people? Prosecutors, FBI agents, journalists who specialize in institutional cover-ups? The school board won't be able to help you when federal investigators get involved. See, threatening a student's academic future for sexual favors? That's bad but manageable for someone like you. Creating pornographic videos of minors? That's life-destroying. Davidson's hands were visibly shaking now as he fumbled with the camera settings. You think you're so smart. I think you've made a series of increasingly stupid decisions because you can't accept that you don't have absolute power anymore. I pulled out my backup plan, the one I'd hoped I wouldn't need. Also, I lied about Jessica. I did text someone before coming here. His head snapped up. What? My cousin Rebecca. She's a sophomore at law school, works with a legal aid clinic. The lie rolled off my tongue smooth as silk. Told her I was scared about this meeting, asked her to call campus security if she didn't hear from me by 1 p.m. I glanced at the clock on his desk. 12:47 p.m. You're lying. But his voice cracked on the words. Maybe. But are you willing to bet your freedom on it? Because creating that video won't just incriminate me, it'll be evidence of every crime you've committed in the last hour. I gestured around the locked office. False imprisonment, attempted coercion, conspiracy to create child pornography. Even if you could somehow spin the harassment charges, those are federal felonies with mandatory minimums. The camera slipped in his sweating hands, nearly toppling off the tripod. I was trying to help you. No, you were trying to control me. Just like you controlled Alicia and probably a dozen other girls over the years. My voice hardened. But you picked the wrong target this time. His phone buzzed on the desk, and we both stared at it. Unknown number. That's probably Rebecca checking in, I said sweetly. Should I answer it? Let her know everything's going great in here. Davidson lunged for the phone, but I was faster. I snatched it before he could reach it and held it up, finger hovering over the answer button. Here's your choice, I said. Unlock that door right now, or I answer this call and start screaming about how my principal is holding me hostage with recording equipment. The silence stretched between us, broken only by the phone's insistent buzzing. Then, slowly, he moved toward the door. The phone stopped buzzing just as Davidson's hand reached the door lock. In the sudden silence, we could hear voices in the hallway, muffled but getting closer. Principal Davidson? A woman's voice called through the door. Are you in there? Maya's mother is here for early pickup. My blood turned to ice. Mom was actually here? That was impossible. I hadn't texted anyone, hadn't arranged early pickup. Unless. Davidson's eyes met mine, and I saw my own confusion reflected in his panic. Neither of us had expected this. Just a minute, he called out, his voice cracking slightly. His hands fumbled with the locks, but instead of opening the door, he grabbed my arm and pulled me toward his desk. Not a word, he hissed in my ear. Smile and act normal, or I'll make sure your mother learns some very interesting things about your behavior this semester. But as the door finally opened, revealing Mom standing next to Mrs. Patterson from the main office, I realized something was very wrong with this picture. Mom was supposed to be in surgery until 3 o'clock. I'd checked her schedule this morning like I always did. Maya? Mom's eyes immediately went to Davidson's hand on my arm, then to my face. Her expression shifted from polite concern to something much sharper. Are you all right, sweetheart? She's fine, Davidson answered before I could speak, finally releasing my arm but staying close enough to loom over me. We were just finishing up our discussion about her college applications. Mom's gaze swept the room, taking in the closed blinds, the unusual seating arrangement, the camera equipment that Davidson was frantically trying to block with his body. 20 years of reading patients and parents had made her very good at detecting when something was wrong. I see. Her voice was dangerously calm. Maya, could you gather your things, please? We need to leave for your appointment. I didn't have an appointment, but I wasn't about to correct her. As I moved toward my backpack, Mrs. Patterson spoke up from the doorway. Actually, Principal Davidson, there's something else. She was holding a manila folder and looked distinctly uncomfortable. We've received another call from the district office. They'd like to speak with you immediately about the Rodriguez family situation. The color drained from Davidson's face so fast I thought he might collapse. The Rodriguez situation was resolved last year. Apparently not. Mrs. Patterson's voice was carefully neutral, but I caught the way her eyes flicked toward me with something that looked like apology. They mentioned something about new information coming to light. My heart hammered against my ribs. Had Alicia's family actually reopened their case? Or was this just coincidental timing that felt like divine intervention? Maya. Mom's voice cut through my spinning thoughts. Your bag. Now. I grabbed my backpack, my phone still clutched in Davidson's sweaty palm. My phone. I'll hold on to this for now, he said quickly, but Mom stepped forward. I'm sorry, but Maya needs her phone for her medical appointment. Doctor's orders. The authority in her voice was absolute, the same tone she used with difficult patients and incompetent residents. Maya suffers from anxiety, and her therapist requires her to have communication access during stressful situations. I didn't suffer from anxiety and didn't have a therapist, but Davidson didn't know that. And the way Mom said it made it sound like documented medical fact rather than improvised excuse. Of course. His hand shook as he passed me the phone. Maya, I hope you'll think carefully about our conversation today. Sometimes perspective changes once we've had time to reflect. The threat was subtle but clear. Mom heard it too, I could tell by the way her posture straightened, shifting into what my dad called her protective parent mode. Oh, I'm sure Maya will remember this conversation very clearly, Mom said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. In fact, I imagine it's the kind of discussion that stays with a person for years. Wouldn't you agree, Mrs. Patterson? The secretary nodded quickly, eager to escape the obvious tension. The district office is expecting your call within the hour, Principal Davidson. As we walked toward the door, I caught sight of the camera still set up in the corner, its red light now dark. Evidence of intent that would be very hard to explain away. Just before stepping into the hallway, Mom turned back to Davidson one final time. Maya's father and I will be very interested to hear about her college recommendation letters. We'll be watching for them quite closely. Her smile was razor-sharp now. Have a wonderful rest of your day. The door closed behind us with a soft click, leaving Davidson alone with his panic and the district office callback that might just be the beginning of his downfall. But as we walked toward the main office, one terrifying thought echoed in my mind. He still thought he could control the narrative. And desperate predators were capable of anything. The walk to the parking lot felt surreal, like moving through thick fog. Mom's hand stayed firmly on my shoulder, guiding me past clusters of students heading to lunch. Everything looked normal, backpacks bouncing, sneakers squeaking against linoleum, the usual chaos of a high school hallway, but I felt like I was watching it all through bulletproof glass. Mom, I started once we reached her car. How did you know to come? I didn't call. Jessica Martinez called the hospital looking for me. She unlocked the doors with shaking hands. Said you'd asked her to check on you if you didn't show up to class, and when you missed fourth period, she got worried. My legs nearly gave out. Jessica had actually been watching for me. The lie I told Davidson about texting someone had accidentally become truth. She said you seemed scared about a meeting with Principal Davidson, and that there were rumors about him and other students. Mom's voice was carefully controlled, but I could hear the fury underneath. I canceled my afternoon surgeries and came straight here. We sat in the car for a moment, engine running, air conditioning blasting away the oppressive heat. I clutched my phone, the recording still saved in my voice memos, 47 minutes of evidence that felt both precious and terrifying. Maya. Mom turned to face me fully. I need you to tell me exactly what happened in that office. The whole story poured out, the inappropriate comments, the text messages, the threats about my college applications, the locked door, the camera equipment. Mom's expression grew darker with each detail, her knuckles white as she gripped the steering wheel. He has copies of my applications, I finished. Draft recommendation letters that make me sound unstable. He's been planning this for weeks, maybe months. Show me the text messages, she said quietly. I pulled them up with trembling fingers, Davidson's late-night messages, the casual intimacy of his tone, the barely veiled threats. Mom read them twice, her face getting paler with each pass. This recording, it captured everything he said today? Everything. The blackmail, the threats, him admitting to covering up what happened with Alicia Rodriguez. I hesitated. But Mom, he's right about one thing. It's still my word against his. And he has the whole school board in his pocket. Not anymore. Mom's smile was grimly satisfied. Mrs. Patterson mentioned the district office calling about the Rodriguez situation. That means someone higher up the food chain is already investigating. Hope flickered in my chest. You think Alicia's family reopened their case? I think social media and changing attitudes about these situations are making it harder for people like Davidson to silence victims. She started backing out of the parking space. But we're not taking any chances. What do you mean? First, we're going to the police station to file a formal report while everything is fresh in your memory. Then we're calling your father's friend Detective Morrison. She specializes in cases involving minors. Mom's voice grew more determined with each word. After that, we're contacting a lawyer who handles educational misconduct. My stomach churned. Mom, what if he retaliates? What if he destroys my college chances before we can stop him? Sweetheart, if we don't stop him now, he'll destroy other girls' futures. And yours won't be safe either. Predators like Davidson don't just let their victims walk away quietly. As we pulled out of the school parking lot, I caught sight of Davidson's office window. The blinds were still drawn, but I could see his silhouette pacing back and forth like a caged animal. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. Asterisk, are you okay? Heard your mom picked you up. Asterisk. For the first time all day, I smiled as I typed back. Asterisk, I'm okay. Thank you for calling her. You might have saved my life. Asterisk. Her response came immediately. Asterisk, we look out for each other. Always. Asterisk. But as Mom drove toward the police station, another text came through that made my blood freeze. Unknown number. Asterisk, big mistake. Maya. You have no idea what you've started. Asterisk. Davidson wasn't giving up. If anything, backed into a corner, he was getting more dangerous. The police station interview lasted 3 hours. Detective Morrison, a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s who specialized in cases involving minors, listened to my entire story without interruption, taking detailed notes as I played the recording. When Davidson's voice filled the small conference room saying, "You don't leave this office until I say you can leave," her jaw tightened visibly. "This is textbook predatory behavior," she said, pausing the playback. "The grooming, the isolation, the systematic threats to your future. And that comment about the office being soundproofed? That shows premeditation." By the time we finished, 2 more families had called the station. Word was spreading through the parent network, and other victims were finally finding their voices. The next morning, I woke to my phone buzzing with notifications. Jessica had posted on social media about standing up for friends, and somehow the story had gained traction. Hashtag #StandWithMaya was trending locally, with dozens of current and former students sharing their own uncomfortable experiences with Davidson. But the real breakthrough came at 10 a.m. "Maya?" Mom called from downstairs. "Detective Morrison is here." I found them in our kitchen, Morrison's expression grimly satisfied. "The district completed an emergency investigation overnight," she announced. "They found Davidson's personal laptop in his office, and the IT department recovered deleted files dating back 5 years. Photos of students taken without consent, saved text message conversations, even video recordings from that camera setup you described." My legs went weak. He'd done this before? Multiple times. Alicia Rodriguez was just the first victim brave enough to speak up. When her family's lawyer threatened to go public yesterday, the district finally took action. Morrison's smile was sharp. Davidson was arrested at his home 2 hours ago. The relief was so overwhelming I had to sit down. What happens now? He's been charged with multiple felonies, harassment of a minor, false imprisonment, attempted coercion, and conspiracy to create exploitative material of minors. The evidence is overwhelming. She leaned forward. "Maya, your recording provided the final piece prosecutors needed to file charges. Without your courage, he might have kept getting away with it." 3 months later, I stood at my bedroom window watching a moving truck pull away from the Davidson house across town. Sarah Davidson and the girls were relocating to her mother's place in another state, trying to rebuild their lives away from the scandal. My acceptance letter to Stanford lay on my desk, early admission with a full scholarship, helped by glowing recommendations from teachers who'd witnessed my courage throughout the legal proceedings. The new interim principal had personally called the admissions office to clarify that my character was beyond reproach. Davidson had pled guilty to avoid trial, receiving 15 years in federal prison. More importantly, 7 other victims had come forward, finally feeling safe enough to tell their stories. The district implemented new policies requiring multiple staff members present during any private student meetings, and mandatory reporting training for all employees. Jessica knocked on my door, carrying 2 cups of coffee and wearing her debate team captain pin. She'd been elected to take over my position. "Ready for your victim impact statement tomorrow?" she asked. I nodded, thinking about the words I'd prepared for the sentencing hearing. Not just about what Davidson had done to me, but about the future, about creating a world where other 17-year-old girls wouldn't have to choose between their safety and their dreams. "You know what the best part is?" I said, accepting the coffee. He thought I was powerless because I was young. But that's exactly what made me dangerous to him. I belong to a generation that refuses to stay silent. My phone buzzed with a text from Alicia Rodriguez. Asterisk, thank you for finishing what I started. See you at the hearing tomorrow. Asterisk. I smiled, typing back. Asterisk, we finished it together. All of us. Asterisk. Some battles require an army. Sometimes that army is made up of brave teenage girls who refuse to be silenced.